Hey everybody, it's Chris, and today I want to present a build. This is the kinds of builds I call practical builds because these are builds that I didn't create to make a video for. I created them to play in D&D, and I've either played the build already or will be playing it soon. Because I play D&D a lot. And so I make a lot of builds, and it occurred to me that I should probably do videos on some of the builds I do. Uh, and so today, what I wanted to do is present a build that I played yesterday. And this build was kind of a thought experiment for me. And what it really came down to is I like the idea of a character that uses a longbow. And traditionally, or I guess stereotypically, that might be a ranger. Now I have some issues with the way the ranger is put together in D&D. I think there are ways to make it work. And in my next practical builds video, in fact, I'm going to show a way that I think the ranger with a longbow can work. But with this build, what I wanted to do is I was kind of thinking of, if we think of the stereotypical ranger, sometimes we think of characters like Aragorn and such that protect the party. Rangers aren't great at protecting the party, and I wanted to figure out if I could figure out a way to have a character that covers the ranger skills, kind of has the ranger thematics, protects the party, uses a longbow. All right, so that's the way I went with this, and so I want to kind of take you through the build and show you how it works. All right, so here's the one shot that was run yesterday, level 7, and this took place in Eberron. It said, it is the dawn of the classic Sharn festival, the day of the 8 winds. The foremost racing champions from across the resplendent city of towers come together to win glory. You and the party are enjoying the rambunctious festivities, having recently returned from closing a rift to the realm of madness, Zoriat, where you stopped aberrations from leaking into the material plane. You're all very much looking forward to recharging yourself in the electric atmosphere. In the blink of an eye, before anyone can even notice it enough to panic about it, an enormous ball of fire hurtles towards the skyway, the topmost district of Sharn, and explodes into it. The entire floating island of Skyway begins crashing towards the ground. It's doomsday, and it's far too late to save yourselves, let alone the rest of the city. Or is it? Style has very few experimental and very weird gimmicks that might not be to your taste if you're looking for a normal game. I'll tell you what the gimmick was. If you've seen the movie Edge of Tomorrow, it was like that. And the idea is that the characters all die by this fireball. All right, we all die, and then we have 10 minutes, and then there's a time loop, and we need to stop this fireball from occurring. So, did this character die? Yeah, about 15,000 times. But yeah, that was the gimmick. It was a lot of fun. Character creation. Level 7 in Eberron 2024 rules. You can use any Eberron setting-specific content. I didn't. I just used generic content, including the 2014 Dragonmark races, 2024 UA Dragonmark feats, but you cannot be both Dragonmark race and have a Dragonmark feat. Normal starting equipment plus 1,000 gold pieces of non-magical equipment, 1 common and 1 uncommon magic item with DM's approval, no more than 2 potions, 1 short rest for each PC. That's a common house rule we do in these one-shots is we limit short rests. And the Scion UA class is allowed, and we did have a Scion in our group, which, by the way, was the Scion that has the Shatter spell that pulls everything towards the center. And that spell was the star of the show. That was really, really good. But I found my character reasonably effective as well. Largely effective as a protector of the party, but also decently offensively in combat. So I want to take you through the build. So like I said, this was a bit of an experiment, and what I wanted to do was see if I could make an archery paladin, and also cover the ranger skills. And then I figured then thematically it would be a ranger, but have the paladin chassis, which I think is stronger than the ranger. Now, we have some challenges because the paladin is not built for ranged weapons. We have attack enhancements that work for melee weapons only, like Divine Smite, including the free one we get at level 2, Paladin Smite, Radiant Strikes, which is at level 11, doesn't work for range combat. Sacred Weapon from Devotion only works on melee weapons. Smite of Protection from Devotion, of course, requires that you use Divine Smite, which doesn't work. Soul of Vengeance from the Vengeance Paladin requires a melee attack. Inspiring Smite from Glory requires a melee weapon. Banishing Smite, Blinding Smite, Searing Smite, Shining Smite, Staggering Smite, Thunderous Smite, and Wrathful Smite, all the smite spells. None of them work with ranged weapons. They only work with melee weapons. You can throw a melee weapon and use them, but it has to be a melee weapon. So if you want to use a longbow, none of these things work. But what I wanted to do was not look for the things that didn't work. I wanted to look for the things that did work. I also found some things were limited by range, and so I didn't think they would work well with a longbow. Vow of Enmity was the first one that I looked at, actually, because I thought advantage would be great, but it has a 30-foot range. That's not great for a longbow. You know, Hunter's Mark is available to Vengeance Paladins, and it occurred to me Hunter's Mark has a range limitation. It only works at 90-foot range, so it's actually not a fantastic spell for a longbow, which is ironic considering it's the ranger spell. And then I found some attack enhancements that don't prohibit ranged weapons. We have the archery combat style. Of course, that's available to rangers, but it's also now available to paladins. Didn't used to be, but it is now. The Bless spell. Now, the Bless spell takes an action to cast, so it's not always easy to get it on in a combat, but if you do get it on, that's a d4 to your attacks. Divine Favor. So it occurs to me, Divine Favor, the more I thought about it, I thought Divine Favor might be a better Hunter's Mark than Hunter's Mark, because Hunter's Mark, of course, it's bonus action to cast, so is Divine Favor. Hunter's Mark adds a d6 to damage. Divine Favor only adds a d4. Hunter's Mark also has a longer duration. But Divine Favor works at any range because you're enhancing the weapon, not targeting the enemy. So you can have it work on creatures 600 feet away, shoot them with your longbow, and you get the d4 extra damage. The other thing is it doesn't use concentration. And that means that there's some frustration with rangers, reasonably so, that you concentrate on Hunter's Mark, and then there are concentration spells you might want to use with Ranger, and you can't because you're using Hunter's Mark. But Divine Favor doesn't have that limitation. Also, Hunter's Mark keeps eating up your bonus actions. It doesn't just use the first one. Divine Favor is one bonus action, and you got it. So I kind of think Divine Favor for an archery character might be the better choice over Hunter's Mark, and significantly so. There's the Elemental Weapons spell, the Magic Weapons spell, and Haste, which Glory and Vengeance Paladins both get, and Ensnaring Strike, which Ancients Paladins get. And Ensnaring Strike, I just want to point out here, uses concentration. It's kind of the Ranger's answer to Divine Smite. That or Hail of Thorns might be the answer to Divine Smite, depending on the way you look at it. But Ensnaring Strike kind of feels like a Smite spell. But if a Ranger is using Hunter's Mark, they can't use Ensnaring Strike. But if a Paladin is using Divine Favor, they can use Ensnaring Strike, so you can combine them, which I thought was really appealing to me. And so I actually went Ancients, and I combined Ensnaring Strike and Divine Favor. And it was really satisfying to be able to do that when you can't use Hunter's Mark with Ensnaring Strike with Ranger. In fact, Ensnaring Strike is a spell I almost never cast. I don't think it's a bad spell. I don't think it's a great spell. But I don't think it's a bad spell, especially the ability to target strength can be good against certain creatures. But it's just so hard to use, right? But if we're using Divine Favor instead of Hunter's Mark, it's so much easier to do Ensnaring Strike. And I used the Wayfarer background. I figured that was fairly obvious for a rangery style character. I got a Charisma of +2 and a Dexterity of +1 from that. The Lucky Origin feat, which is a strong Origin feat. Insight and Stealth. Stealth, of course, you definitely want if you want to have a kind of a ranger feel to your character. And Thieves' Tools proficiency. And so, with a good dex and Thieves' Tool proficiency, if I pick up Sleight of Hand, I could be good at picking locks as well. I thought that might be nice. So I can do a little bit of the roguish thing in addition to the ranger thing. And I just realized I made a mistake. I took Charisma +1 and Dexterity +2. All right. So that's what I took. The species I took was human. And the main reason I wanted human is because I was a little concerned about skills, because rangers get an additional skill. They also get expertise. I just felt like I wanted to cover more skills with this character, especially if I wanted to also be kind of the leader of the party and have the good leadership skills like you would expect Aragorn to have. But he's also good at stealth and tracking and perception. You almost need skilled. So I took versatile, skilled. If you wanted to focus on combat, I'd do alert, right? But this character had a reasonably good initiative, so I wasn't too concerned about that. And skill just fit the thematics that I was looking for a little bit more. So my starting ability scores were Strength of 8, Dexterity 17, Constitution of 14, Intelligence of 10, Wisdom of 8, Charisma of 16. If I could go back, I might put Wisdom at 10 and Intelligence at 8, because it did occur to me after that there's a couple skills I took that are kind of rangery skills. Survival and Perception would be the obvious examples that are Wisdom based. And of course, I'm at an additional -1 because my Wisdom got dumped, right? So that's one thing. But anyway, let's go into the build. So at level 1 in Paladin, I picked up Persuasion and Insight. So now my skills are Insight, Intimidation, Investigation, Perception, Persuasion, Sleight of Hand, Stealth, and Survival. That's a good quantity of skills. So I definitely felt like I covered a lot of skills. We're going to get Lay on Hands. That's going to be 5 points at level 1. Lay on Hands, of course, the nice thing about it is the scaling is fantastic on Lay on Hands by 5 points per level, especially if you're doing a straight classed Paladin. I picked up Weapon Mastery and Longbow and Rapier, so I figured I would concentrate on the Longbow, but I'd have the Rapier, and it'd be my backup weapon. And if I ever got caught in melee, then I would use the Rapier, and what the heck, then I'd probably throw on a Divine Smite as well. At spells, for level 1, I took Bless and Divine Favor, and like I said, Divine Favor kind of was my fill-in for Hunter's Mark. Level 2, Lay on Hands becomes 10 points. I picked up the Archery Fighting Style. That's going to give a +2 bonus to hit with ranged attacks. We get Paladin Smite. That gives us the free Divine Smite. So if I do use the Rapier, I can use that. Otherwise, I won't use it. And spells I picked up Divine Smite, which you get automatically. I picked up Cure Wounds, and I recently released a video on Cure Wounds to explain why I think it's such a good spell. Paladin level 3. Lay on Hands becomes 15 points. Get 2 Channel Divinities. And I picked up Oath of Ancients. And we're going to get Nature's Wrath, which I think is a nice thematic ability for something that wants to have that kind of ranger feel to it. Basically, you pick enemies within 15 feet of you, so especially if you get caught in melee or something, they make a strength saving throw or they're restrained. And there's no friendly fire for it. And then with level 1 spells, you get Ensnaring Strike and Speak with Animals as automatic preparations. Those both are totally thematically appropriate for a ranger. Speak with Animals is a ritual, meaning that you can cast it without using a spell slot. And Ensnaring Strike, like I said, can combine with Divine Favor, and I absolutely did that. I also picked up the Command Spell because the Command Spell is great. Okay. Then Paladin level 4, Lay on Hands becomes 20 points. And I pick up maybe my favorite feat in the game, Mage Slayer. Mage Slayer, I think if I was... At some point, I'm going to end up doing a feat tier list, I'm sure. And Mage Slayer is going at the top. I'll just spoil that right now. Mage Slayer gives you a automatic save on a mental saving throw that you've already failed once per short or long rest. I used it twice in this adventure. Very, very strong feat. Plus, I got my dexterity increased by 1. If you're making a strength-based character, you can increase your strength with it. And if a creature's concentrating on a spell, it has disadvantage on the concentration saving throw that it gets based on damage you cause it. Just so good. Way better than taking something like Sharpshooter or Crossbow Expert. It's not even close. And then the spell I picked up was Protection from Evil. Once again, this character's name, by the way, is Ward. I think that was showing on the screen at the beginning. And this was very much the theme of the character, is protect the other party members, which I was pretty good at in the session. There were several saves where my Aura of Protection made a difference. The Aura of Warding came into effect pretty dramatically, actually. I used the Bless spell to help people. So there was definitely warding on my part and healing on my part. I cast Cure Wounds. I cast Cure Wounds at 2nd level. I used all my Lay on Hands. So yeah, I was definitely doing that part of it as well. And the nice thing is a lot of that you can do with bonus actions. So you can still shoot your bow. Paladin level 5, Lay on Hands becomes 25 points. Get extra attack, of course, very important. Then we get Faithful Steed. This gives us the Find Steed spell for free. Forgot to write it down, but it would be another level 2 spell that I got was Find Steed. And I used that as well. And then I picked up Magic Weapon, Misty Step, and Moonbeam. And Misty Step and Moonbeam are the automatic preparations for Ancients. Moonbeam, I think, is thematic for a rangery type of character. I don't even know if rangers get Moonbeam. I don't remember off the top of my head. And Misty Step. And just really nice mobility boost there. And Magic Weapon. So if I'm using a non-magic weapon, bonus action. It's magic. Also doesn't use concentration, by the way. Paladin level 6. And then I get Lay on Hands 30. And I have Aura of Protection, which is a +3. And Paladin level 7, which is the level we played at, Lay on Hands was now 35 points. Like I said, I used all 35 points. Aura of Warding gave resistance to Necrotic, Psychic, and Radiant. In this particular session, Psychic came up multiple times. And so that was nice to have, that I had the resistance and the party, which all happened to be in range of me at that time, also had resistance. And I picked up Lesser Restoration. Once again, protecting the rest of the party, bonus action cast. And the combat strategy for the character is pretty simple. You start with the Divine Favor, and that's, our Hunter's Mark, except there's no concentration and no range limit. And then I would also have the option of Ensnaring Strike on later rounds. Can't do it, of course, on the same round you cast Divine Favor. And I did combine them, and they failed to save on Ensnaring Strike, and it was nice. Lay on Hands is a bonus action. Divine Smite is a bonus action. Magic Weapon is a bonus action. Misty Step is a bonus action. Lesser Restoration is a bonus action. Lots and lots and lots of bonus action options. I never had to worry about not having something to do with my bonus action. So that's the build. And I just want to talk a little bit about the ways I think this did perform better than a Ranger. Divine Favor can effectively replace Hunter's Mark, and you have no concentration. You have only one bonus action it ever uses, and it effectively has no range limitations. Ensnaring Strike and Divine Favor can be used together. Lay on Hands means we're better at healing than a Ranger is. Aura of Protection and Aura of Warding improve the ability to protect yourself and your allies. Divine Smite allows this character to switch to melee weapons more effectively when it comes up. And yes, I did use my Paladin Smite, free Divine Smite with this character. Killed an Intellect Devourer with it. A charismatic figure like Aragorn can be more closely emulated. So if you want to be like kind of the party face and the party leader and be a ranger, this character build can work for that. Ancient's Paladin fits in thematically with the ranger archetype. And this is true at any level. You could take Ranger or you could take Paladin all the way to level 20. And with Ancients, every ability you get kind of fits thematically for Ranger. It could be a Ranger subclass. And you have an animal companion, right? Your Found Steed. So you're a Beastmaster Ranger, except your beast can teleport, and you can ride it, and you can telepathically communicate it for up to a mile away. Okay, so pretty good. There are ways, though, it's not as good as a ranger. So I don't want to. I don't want to give you any false advertising here. There are some things, and some of these were frustrations in the game, and others were just ones I thought of that didn't come up in the game. Wisdom-based skills like perception and survival, you can take them, you can be proficient in them, but if your wisdom's not good, they're not going to be great, right? Ranger casts Hunter's Mark without spell slots. This character can cast Divine Favor, which I argue might be better than Hunter's Mark, but it does use spell slots. The Ranger has Expertise. Now, at level 7 only has 1, but he'll eventually get 2 more. And this character does not. So, I ended up with a +2 bonus on wisdom-based skills like Perception. And, a Ranger would have much better than that. You may want access to certain Ranger spells, and the Paladin doesn't have access to them. I've basically covered the main Ranger spells that I'd want to take that are on this build, but there are other Ranger spells I'd probably take if I was playing a Ranger that weren't available here. Also, you might look at a Ranger subclass and like the features there. I haven't talked about the features of Ranger subclasses here, really. And if those are of interest to you, you can't get them with a Paladin. And also, a Ranger can probably multiclass if they're making an archery character. A Paladin, if they're making a dexterity-based Paladin, probably can't multiclass. It's very, very difficult because you need to have a strength of 13 to multiclass out of Paladin. And that is a hard fit because, with a Paladin, you really don't want to not maximize your charisma and your primary ability for attacks, which in this case is dexterity. You might be able to do it maybe if you had a multi-class in there and got Pact of the Blade through Warlock. You might be able to work something out there. But certainly with this particular build, you just can't multi-class out. It's not available. Both Rangers and Paladins, I think, have some issues with archery that make them worse at it than, say, a fighter. 1 damage boost you can get with archery that scales with level is the Great Weapon Master feat, because it applies to all heavy weapons, or at least the damage bonus on attack action attacks does. So if you have a longbow or heavy crossbow, they have the heavy property. This eventually outdamages Divine Favor and Hunter's Mark, and by eventually I mean it doesn't take that long, okay? And it's outdamaging them. And at high levels, it's outdamaging them by a lot. Great Weapon Master requires a 13 strength score, and 13 strength is a very hard fit on a dexterity-based Paladin or Ranger since both have secondary ability scores. This isn't a problem at level 7 because you wouldn't have Great Weapon Master anyways, but at higher levels it's a problem. And so for this one-shot it didn't matter. But if the one-shot was level 15 or 16, it'd be a lot tougher to be making an archery-based Paladin, I think. Now, this is an easier problem for a Ranger to deal with than for a Paladin to deal with, because a Ranger can probably get away with a 14 or even a 13 Wisdom. It'll affect your spell selection for sure, but they can get away with it. But a Paladin can't really get away with a lower Charisma. If you get to level 6 in Paladin and you're sitting on a 13 Charisma, that's going to suck, right? You just don't want to do that because Aura Protection is probably your most powerful ability. So those were my thoughts on that. How did it perform? It performed pretty well, I think. Not perfectly, but pretty well. I did find there was a lot of bonus action conflict. So there was a lot of the time I wanted to do multiple things with my bonus action, and I could only choose one. I also found I forgot I had the lucky feat, and that would have made a big difference. There was just so many things that I wasn't used to playing a Paladin that was focusing on being a Ranger and using different spells than I normally use, and I was keeping track of some things, and I forgot I had the lucky feat, and it really would have made a difference, especially at the end. I also thought that when it came to protecting the rest of the party, though, this character was great. So in that aspect, I was really happy with it. So here's my character sheet, and yeah, you can see the starting ability scores here. Saving throws, I like to make saving throws, and I had, at least a +2 bonus on everything. There are the skill. I had a lot of skills. Like I said, the one thing I did notice is if I was doing a wisdom-based skill, I still wasn't that great at it, right? A +2, it's better than not being proficient, but it's not as good as a ranger would be. Like, let's be honest. Speed of 30. I mean, technically speaking, a ranger would have roving at this level and have a walking speed of 40, as well as a swim speed and a climb speed. But when you have faithful steed or fine steed, mobility is not a problem. And this character also had Misty Step, never needed it. But if you have a steed, you can move around very easily. For my uncommon magic item, I took Longbow of Warning. That gave advantage on initiative. So I had +4 with advantage, so that was pretty good. I just used studded leather armor, so that was an armor class of 16. I didn't want disadvantage on my stealth rolls because my stealth was actually pretty good. Probably as good as a ranger, unless they were an expert in that particular skill. And spells I picked up, I had Bless, Command. You can see I've used up almost all my spell slots. But yeah, I had Bless, Command, Cure Wounds, Divine Favor, Divine Smite, Ensnaring Strike, Protection from Evil and Good, Speak with Animals. And then I had Fine Steed, Lesser Restoration, Magic Weapon, Misty Step, and Moonbeam. So like I said, I was pretty happy with it. I would definitely play this build again. I probably wouldn't play it into high levels. This is a good character, I think, for tier 2. Probably okay at tier 1 as well, but I think this is really a tier 2 character. So if you're playing a one-shot in tier 2 or playing a campaign that might finish before the end of tier 2, I think something like this works pretty well, especially if you want to play an archer and you're thinking ranger and then you're thinking, I like paladin. I think paladins are better than rangers. Well, here it is. Ward might fill the bill for you. So yeah, I was pretty happy with the build and happy enough that I thought I'd present it. But in my next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another practical build for a ranger multi-class. So it was a ranger rogue, and it was a couple months ago I played with this build, and during the session it was working really well, and I said, I should do a build video for this, and the other player said, yeah, do a build video. And I've even been bugged a couple times about when I'm going to be doing a build video for that character. So it's coming up in my next video. But tell me what you think of Ward. Otherwise, until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.